Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do part 2 of my adult book recommendation video. I have already given you romance book recommendations. Now I want to give you every other genre of adult book that I have read recommendations. Basically they're primarily fiction or fantasy. There is one mystery on the list as well. I'm not primarily a mystery reader, but it's by my favorite author, which is why it's on this list. So the first book is called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She was also in my romance adult book recommendation video as well, so you can tell she's a favorite of mine. So in The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it's about a famous celebrity who recounts her life that she has spent maneuvering through Hollywood, marrying all of her husbands, and the love, ambition, and friendship that motivated her along the way. I really liked how this book showed a woman who experienced quite a bit of sexism because this is 1950s Hollywood, but she found ways to use the beliefs and limitations put on women at the time for her own benefit. So that was very satisfying. Basically, anytime some sort of sexist limitation was thrown in her way, she found a way to use it, overcome it, go around it, ram through it, or manipulate it in order to get at least part of the way towards a life that she wanted. And that showed her having power. Even if others didn't recognize it or know it at the time, it was very rewarding for me as a reader to see that. I also like how the story was structured around her 7 husbands. So basically every husband signified a different stage in her life, different stage in her career. During the relationship with each husband, she had different prominent obstacles she had to overcome at the time. And depending on who she was married to, she was able to use them to help her get what she wanted, or get support from them, or work around them. And all of those dynamics put together made for a very interesting plot. My favorite quote in the book actually shows Evelyn Hugo's perspective on how to operate in life. And that quote is, "My mother raised me to be polite, to be demure. I have long operated under the idea that civility is subservience, but it hasn't gotten me very far, that type of kindness. The world respects people who think they should be running it." So that definitely hints at her belief that if she wants something, she has to go for it. That's how she's going to get it, and believing she deserves it, and finding a way to get it. So if you like a book about the price of fame, complexities of love, and the dynamics of femininity, sexuality, and power, this is the book for you. The next book is also another Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and it's called Carrie Soto is Back. Carrie Soto is Back is about Carrie Soto, the best tennis player in the world, who's been retired for a few years, but decides to come back for one last year in order to defend her record from this new up-and-coming tennis player who is threatening to be better than even she was. So I like it because I relate to the messaging out there about your life is best lived by achieving, and your life has more value when you're the best at something. Your achievements have more value if you achieve the highest possible achievement in that area, and that the more you achieve, the more worthy you are in some way. I was never a tennis player, but I did curl in university. I was in the competitive curling space. You can probably see my curling bag is just right there. And I definitely got messaging like that a lot, that when you're here, it just matters that you're the best. While you're here, you are a curler, that's all you are. Don't bring your personal stuff onto the ice. If you need to cancel a personal event in order to train, that's what you should do. Every free minute should be you training and getting better. So I related in that respect. I also just liked seeing another ambitious woman knowing how to and having the will to and the ability to get what she wanted, even though she gets a lot of messaging saying that it's wrong for her to want that, for her to be so demanding, for her to go for what she wants without apology. But my favorite quote in this book does hint at Carrie Soto making a realization of how much the tennis world has demanded of her life. And the quote is, "When did I lose that? The delight of success? When did winning become something I needed to do in order to survive? Something I did not enjoy having so much as panic without." So again, back to the idea that your existence is worthy. All your hard work is only worth it if you're the best. And if you spend so much time and effort and energy and thoughts being in that world, then if that's ever taken away from you, what do you have? Who are you? So if you like a book that challenges sexism and ageism, shows the value of having a balance in your personal and professional life, and exploring how much our achievements make up our identity, this is the book for you. The next book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is a new discovery for me this year. I'm going to read more by her because I loved this book. So in this book, Emily, she's a Cambridge professor. She is in a Scandinavian country at the moment because she is researching the local fae, and a few chapters in, she is forced to accept the help of fellow professor, Cambridge professor Wendell Bambleby, even though she prefers to do things on her own. So I really like this book, and I especially like the dynamic between Emily and Wendell a lot. They are both very different people, almost opposites in every single way, but I liked how they each had their own unique skills that made it so that they were more successful in their project. Emily had the knowledge, the vast knowledge of the Fae that helped them along the way, but Wendell had the person skills, the people skills to get other people to help them, which were both very clearly in the plot necessary for them to have the success that they did have. Both characters each had their own area of competency. Competency is one of my favorite parts of a character. I struggle to read characters that are kind of bumbling and aren't competent in many ways. So both these characters, even if they had faults, I still love them because they both had strong areas of competency. I also really like the portrayal of Fae in this book. It's actually probably the only portrayal of Fae in a book that I've enjoyed, because I like when Fae are portrayed in more of the traditional original sense of them being these kind of whimsical, mischievous creatures who you can never fully trust and will only do what they feel like doing in the ways they feel like doing it. And sometimes they can help or hurt you depending on their nature. And my favorite quote in this book actually hints at Emily Wilde's personality a little bit, and I like the way they word it. It really gives you an insight into how introverted Emily Wilde really is and how much she really does like doing things herself. So the quote is, "I've never needed rescuing before. I suppose I always assumed that if I ever did, I would have two options: rescue myself or perish." And I found that so funny because it really shows how she doesn't even consider asking for help to be an option ever. She is fully accepting of the fact that if she tries to do something and she fails, I guess she'll just die. That's just the way it is. As most people, if you think there's a chance of death, you're going to ask for help. So that really gave me a nice picture of who Emily Wilde is and made me like her a little more. The unapologeticness of who she is just connected with me. So if you like a book about belonging, navigating social pressure, and balancing personal and professional goals, this is the book for you. The next book is Bitten by Kelley Armstrong, my favorite author. This is actually my favorite book by her ever. I read it when I was in high school, and it's been my favorite book ever since. It is a fantasy book about a werewolf named Elena, and she lives in Toronto, but she gets called back to Upper New York State, where her original pack, werewolf pack, is located, because they have to fight back against a werewolf uprising. So the pack is the only werewolf pack in North America, and their job is to make sure the werewolves of the continent don't get out of hand and reveal their identity, because there's not a whole lot of werewolves, and if humans knew they existed, they would not survive very long. So they call Elena back to help them. Elena does not want to be back, though, because she's trying to move on with her life and live more in the human world as a human. I loved the action in this book. There is tons of fight scenes because, again, it's werewolves versus werewolves. So that increased the pace and the stakes just from the action alone. I also found Elena's internal struggle between her werewolf side and her human side to be very interesting, and how she tried to draw a line in so many ways between the two, and how that would help or hinder her along the way depending on what was demanded of her and what world she was living in. I also really liked the romance in this book. It's only a subplot, it's a romantic subplot, but it might be one of my favorite romances I've ever read, even though it's not even a romance book. There's such a powerful, turbulent history between the two romantic interests, and it plays into her struggle with her identity. It plays into the current conflict of the plot between werewolves versus werewolves. So it basically just added tension on top of tension on top of tension, which I enjoyed because it made me want to keep reading, so I'd get some payoff and some relief from all this tension. And it was only when Elena was able to come to terms with her past and her identity that the romance was able to be committed to in the end. So if you like a book about reconciling your past, embracing your whole identity, and belonging, this is the book for you. The last book is also by Kelley Armstrong, and it's Exit Strategy is the name of the book. It's a mystery. It's the only mystery on this list. It is about Nadia and Jack, who are contract killers, so they kill people for money, and they work together with a few members of the hitman community in order to fight back and shut down this rogue killer going around and killing too many people in such a high-profile way, which is threatening the secrecy and exclusivity of the hitman community. I like this book because it showed many characters that each had their own unique take on the morality behind killing people. They all had different lines they would draw on what kind of jobs they would take versus they wouldn't take because it was wrong, what jobs were okay to take, what kind of people were okay to kill, and what kind of people were not. I also like that the skilled mentor trope was in here, so a very capable person that was able to help our main character along the way. I also like how our main character had her own unique skills that she was the best at, so she was such a valuable asset to the characters and the plot. Only she had this ability to do it as well as she did. If you like a book about community, the dark world of crime, and the ethics of who, what, where, when, why, and how to kill someone, this is the book for you. That is all the books I have for you today. That's all the adult recommendations I have for you. Looking back, I see a few commonalities between all these books. I get a little bit more of an idea of what my book taste is. I notice that I like books with a subplot of romance in them. I also like reading about female protagonists who discover and practice their own unique skills and abilities that often only they have or they're the best at, and it allows them to achieve their goals. So if you have read any of these books, let me know down below. If any of these books stuck out to you and you're going to add them to your TBR, I would like to know. I'm always curious what types of books people like to read. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you in my next video.